So we had implemented already find user by credential, right? And you notice that we also have to be able to find a user by username. And the URLs are different only in the query string, right? One provides this username, whereas the other one provides both username and password, right? But from the server's point of view, there's no way for it to distinguish between these two because it ignores the query string, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to create a single a function, right, which is going to receive a request for either one, right? And depending on the query string, we're going to decide to go one way or another, right? So let's do that. Let's go to the server, and in the server, we'll have this. We already had this find user by credentials, right? That was mapped to API user. Instead, let's map this to something a little more generic called find user, right? Find user. And find user, depending on the query string, it'll decide to find it by one way or another, right? With a username or username and password, right? So let's implement it right here. So it'd be function find user and request response, and this will extract both username and password, right? And if we have both, right? If we have username and we have password, then we can just use find by credential. We can just call it, right? We can just pass it the request and the response. Right? So you deal with the request and response, right? Otherwise, if we only have username, right? We would do a find user by username, which we don't have, right? We pass the request and the response, right? So we can have function and find user by username, right? Which takes the same thing, request and response, right? And this is just going to retrieve the user by iterating over all the users, and when it finds that the user.username matches the request.params.username, if it matches that, then it'll return true, right? And that's the user that we want. Okay. So if we have a user, right? If we have the user, we're going to respond JSON with the user. How about if we don't have a user? How about if we don't find it somehow, right? We put in a username that it's not there. So we're not going to respond with this. So instead, what we could do is else, right? We can say respond, and then we can send error statuses, right? If something went wrong, okay, we can send status, and we can say a 404. 404 is not found, right? We didn't find it, okay. Plus, we can send an error message, right? We can send message user not found, right? So let's try that, right? So let's try with a username. So if we restart the server, let's see if we can still log in. That should work the same way. Let's go back to login. So log out, and we try Bob and Bob. So that should still work just the same. Looks like it didn't work. We have a console. Bob error mismatch. What is it? Get username API user. That's correct. Failed. Find user by ID. Find user if. Oh my goodness. Else. Thank you. Restart. Bob and Bob. Okay, so that still works, right? It comes back with that user. But how about if we want to register, right? In our register, we would like to check to see if that username is already taken, right? So for instance, when I register, in our register controller, the register controller, let's see, controller, do we have register controller? I guess we didn't, right? In the register, when we click on register, let's instead go to model. We say, we say ng click, and this will say model dot register, and we'll pass in user. And user is a local variable that holds the inputs for all these guys, right? So this will be ng model user.username, right? And this is ng model equal username.password, right? And this is ng model equal user.password2, right? So in the controller, which we don't have, let me copy this one, and this is register, the register controller. In the register controller, we're going to, we have the event handler, what is it, register? Did I call it register? Right, and here's register, passes the user. What's it going to do? It's going to try and find the user, by find user by username, right? And it's going to pass the username. Yes, it's going to find the username. And so here, what we're going to do is we're going to do success. So function user. So we're going to say here console. Or we can do an error message, right? We can say, let's see, if it finds the user, it should say something like, sorry, that username is already taken, or something like that, right? So we can say something like vm.message equal, sorry, that username is already taken. Okay. Otherwise, if it doesn't find it, error. We get the error right here. It's actually good, right? That user is available, right? So message available, right? In the templates, we can have an error message right here. We can say div class alert success for the success, and we only want to show this only if there is a model message, right? And we want to show what the message is. Correct? So we have a brand new controller, and we need to load that in our index page. So this would be right here, right? So it would be script, src, user, controllers, register controller, right? And we need to register our register page and tie it to this brand new controller. So we can say that the controller is the register controller, and that the controller is model. Okay, so let's reload that, see if we get something. So if I say Bob and I try to register, I get an error. It says find user by username is not in the user service. So let's create it. So the user service, where's the user service? Right here, right? We don't have that API. Okay, we don't need the URL anymore. This array. So let me remove that. So find user. Let's create find user by username. Right, and let's implement it down here. All right, we don't need this for loop anymore. So we can say function find user by username, and here's the username, and we're going to return $HTTP. We're going to get, it's the same URL that we were using here, right? It's almost the same URL, that we're using here we're using the credentials, but we don't have a password. That's the difference, right? We're just passing username, correct? All right, so let's restart the server, and let's try this again. Try Bob. Oops, the server failed. Let's see what's going on. Can't set headers, yada yada yada. 52. User. So wait a minute. So if it found the user. Oh, I'm sorry. If it finds the user. Wait a minute. If user. Wait, did we send the response already? No, we didn't, right? User return response send status. Wait a minute. Let me see. Bob 404. So not found. So it says available. All right. So it's available. We get a 404. Instead, if I say something else, get a register. Oh wait, not found? Is it always not found? Let me see. Let me see what we're getting here. Console log user. Oh, thank you. Yes, it is query. Just checking. You're awake. Register available Bob. It's already taken, right? So it toggles to see, depending on the success or the failure, right? It tells me. Notice that I'm using the logic of 404 to tell me that I didn't find that, so it's good, it's available. And whereas if I did find it, then it says, oh, sorry, it's not available. Make sense? Right? And I can, again, so depending on what I get, whether 200 or 404, I can handle either one using the dot error or the dot error or the dot success. Everybody good? All right. All right, so let's keep going a little bit further. Not sure. Package JSON. 413. Oh, okay. No, but I've been using it for a while, so yeah. Let me debug it. Yeah. Thank you. All right, so let's keep going. Let's say that I log in. I log in as Bob, and I want to go to the websites. Right? So if I want to go to the websites, it would be the websites for the user. Again, notice the URL that we're using. All right, that's a RESTful API. Right? Notice that it's following, saying that there's a relationship between these two. Right? Encoded in the path. Right? There is a parent user, right? Set of users. There's a specific user, and there are child websites, right? Of that particular user, right? So that's also part of the RESTful API convention. All right. So let's create another web service for that.